Welcome to ACD Combatives, your combatives and control tactics channel. Please like, subscribe, and share. Hey guys, Coach Kurt. So I want to talk about traditional martial arts, specifically Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Japanese style of Taiho Jitsu, Korean Hapkido, and there are other systems out there that are traditional martial arts that do a lot of joint manipulation, such as Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, Aikido. You get the idea. And you know, I push Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu quite a bit on this channel, or in mixed martial arts, and incorporating it into ACD combatives or modern control tactics. One thing I have noticed that is missing in modern police control tactics, and it's sad, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they just, you know, most agencies only train for 4 to 8 hours a year, and it's just not enough. They're not getting enough of anything. But a lot of the joint manipulation, the art of taking kazushi, taking somebody's balance, and really drilling these techniques, something the kind of technique you would see in classical, traditional Kodokan Judo or Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and Taiho Jitsu and traditional Korean Hapkido or Aikido, all these systems. I mean, I could go on. But they do a lot of drilling of the technique to the point where sometimes that's the detriment of the systems. They drill so much, but yet they don't go against resisting opponents like in a live roll. That would be the only hang-up that I have with some schools. But this what you get from your traditional martial arts, the drive for perfection in the techniques, not just learning some tricks, as I've had officers show me some tricks or techniques. No, you need to study this stuff for years. You need to drill it, and of course go against resisting opponents. But what I'm showing here, you saw me transition from the video showing the Taiho Jitsu baton work, very classical. I'm back to it, and you saw that I'd cut into a modern control tactics use of baton. Here's something you don't see anymore in control tactics or modern martial arts, is from the Seiza position. You see that in a lot of the traditional martial arts because they would practice on their knees for traditional reasons, going all the way back to the samurai, where they would be on their knees before their lord or indoors. But here I'm showing the joint manipulation and the takedowns that I'm talking about, that I learned in Hapkido and later in other martial arts like Japanese Jiu-Jitsu or Taiho Jitsu. A rose by another name is still a rose, and you're going to see the exact same wrist locks, armbar takedowns, joint manipulation in all the systems. And here I am showing it from the classic come along. In modern control tactics, the way to get to that come along position, or what I call the Russian 2-on-1, is through the clinch. That would be one difference in some cases, not in all cases. You would see in a traditional martial art where they do the traditional like overhand strike, or some kind of straight punch, and you would sidestep and intercept, or someone would grab your wrist and you practice the joint lock from that angle. That's still very important. That's how you teach a new student how to do these wrist locks and joint manipulation, from very static drilling positions. You can't just jump into a live roll and expect to learn these things, or going in doing randori against an aggressive pressing opponent. You have to drill these positions. Here I am doing a more modern armbar takedown versus your Aiki style or Taiho Jitsu style. And you see I'm going into like a back mount often, or knee on the back or knee on the belly, and rolling them to their stomach, because in modern control tactics you're putting them in handcuffs. You're not bringing them back up with a joint lock and escorting them out. That would be more something like a bouncer would do, or something like that. A cop could absolutely do something like that, or private security could do something like that. But generally speaking, once you get them down on their belly, it's you're going to handcuffs. And you see me doing that again. This is the come along position where you're just escorting them out, or some people call it the escort position. And how you would get there in modern control tactics is through the pummel. Somebody throws a punch, you elbow shield, crashing, and get into a pummel position. That would be the easiest way to do it. You don't have time to teach police officers blending with somebody's strike and approaching it from that direction. Those are more advanced entries. Here I am, just your typical Kotagaishi or outward wrist takedown. These are classic, simple techniques. I say simple, but they can also take a long time to teach. This is Sankyo, or in some systems, Sankajo. That's more of your older Aiki Jiu-Jitsu way of saying it. But Sankyo is your twist lock. Here I am showing demonstrations on how all these techniques I'm showing you, I've used them in real life. In 26 years of police work, I've used a lot of these techniques on the street. So for you modern combative styles or MMA guys saying, oh, this stuff would never work in real life, I've used it on the street against resisting people that I'm arresting. Now, there's a scenario, you change the facts, and you have to change the technique. So I can tell you that all these things work. It's just how you apply them and knowing when to apply them. I'm doing what I would consider an entering throw. You're entering somebody's center line and you're taking them down. It's more of a projection than the throw. And then I'm saying then you go to your bat belt, you go to your taser, you give them voice commands. That's the thing about projecting somebody away from you. Now you're no longer in contact with them, so now you have to either go down with them, or in this case, I'm capturing his wrist and going, I'm knee on belly, or I'm rolling him over. Here I am demonstrating, okay, you can roll him over, but look what happens. They'll gain their balance and they can take you down. Like a good wrestler or a good grappler is going to do that. So I'm going to demonstrate what I call picture framing, where I'm pulling up on the hand and I'm bending the elbow on him. I'm exaggerating it so you can see it in the video. That's one side of the picture frame, the second side of the picture frame, the third side of the picture frame, and that's a great way to lock the shoulder out so they can't get up. These are important things that you have to drill over and over and over, and that's what you're going to get in traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, Taiho jiu-jitsu, Korean hapkido, Aiki jiu-jitsu, Aikido. There's so many different systems out there that are grappling systems. Here I'm doing Nikyo or Z-lock. And here I am from, again, modern control tactics point of view. He's grabbing my outer vest, so I'm doing a swim through to a body clinch, and I can take him down. That's one approach. And I say, well, here's another approach. He grabs my outer vest, and I could do Nikyo, the Z-lock. I think, I'm sorry. I go through another takedown and do a knee bump and take him down. I believe this time I demonstrate a Z-lock or Nikyo. Yep, here we go. Classic Nikyo or Z-lock, where you're doing a wrist lock and you're taking them down from a grab. Just don't have the time to teach. Again, I have 8 hours a year to teach my officers this kind of stuff, and I follow the agency curriculum. And back in the 90s when I started law enforcement, there's a Nikyo or Z-lock from a mount position. I pulled that off on white belts sometimes in a roll. You're not supposed to use wrist locks on white belts, but I'm one of those dirty wrist lockers. But guys, everything I'm showing you, I've done. Like this, here's going to be Sankyo from somebody taking your back and doing the seatbelt position, and you can get a wrist lock. I've pulled that off in a jiu-jitsu roll. So, guys, this stuff has worked. This is classical, traditional martial arts approaches. And it's crucial to still keep this in your repertoire. Here I am again from the classic wrist grab. And I've heard people say, well, nobody's ever going to grab you like this. You know, you're probably right. Although, say that to a small female, they get grabbed by the wrist or the shirt or the jacket all the time. But the best way to teach these wrist locks and joint manipulations is from a basic static position, your white, yellow, orange level belt ranks. You practice from a static grab, teaching them how to take the person's kazushi, i.e. take their balance, enter, and take them down. Here's classic Hapkido. This is your traditional Hapkido school. It looks a lot like the kind of stuff I did when I studied Hapkido way back in the day. It's depending on what lineage of Hapkido you come from, it can look more Aiki, and then there are schools that look more like Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. It depends on your instructor, the lineage, and so forth. Korean Hapkido, or Hapkido in general, the lineages can be all over the place, and there's been a lot. It's not as clean as your Japanese systems as far as tracking lineage. There are a lot of arguments on the history of Hapkido in the Hapkido world. Some say, oh yeah, it absolutely comes from Japanese martial arts, and then there's the purists say, no, it's been around for thousands of years. In Korea, I don't believe that to be true, but now I'm getting off track. But here you're seeing a very classic approach from wrist grabs or lapel grabs, someone grabbing the gi. Here we are, he's grabbing the gi, and he's going to do a classic armbar style takedown. It's very similar to any Hapkido school, any Jiu-Jitsu school, any Taiho Jitsu school. Maybe not the exact variation that they're doing, but guys, you see this and you're like, that's very familiar to you. If you do Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Kodokan Judo, like classic Kodokan Judo, not sport, modern sport Judo, it's a whole new world, the sport Olympic Judo. They've lost so much of this kind of stuff from the systems. And I don't claim to be any kind of judo expert, but you talk to somebody who is, that studies classic Kodokan Judo, and they'll tell you, yeah, there's so much of the system and the art that has been lost, and they maintain that through doing kata. Now here I am demonstrating how I like to approach everything from a pummeling. Here I am teaching pummeling. You get that underhook, and then I'm grabbing. Now you see we're in a no-gi scenario, so this is more modern control tactics. But this is how I'm teaching him the chain method. Like, okay, I'm taking a Kazushi by getting that underhook. I can grab the wrist, it doesn't matter. I can push against the head, it doesn't matter. All that is not so much as important as what they present to you. What they give you is what you're going to take. So you've got to practice it, from various angles. And here I am coming around to the outside. I'm going to step through, and I'm going to do an inside leg trip. Boom. And I'm taking it down. I'm teaching him this. You're going to see me going through the motions. Like, okay, so he moves, and so I do throw a knee, and I can go around to the other side with an underhook and just trip that leg with a leg trip takedown. Okay, so you can come over with the head and arm throw. I'm teaching him that to take this as a Kazushi. I'm twisting the body. I'm taking his head like I'm going to my knee, and I'm doing a hip throw. Here he is, a same type of attack, but from a typical punch or roundhouse. I follow up with a knee to take their Kazushi, and boom, I'm going with another hip throw. Same thing, I step through and he steps out of it. It's like, okay, you have to do something else. So I adapt by punching him. That causes him to lose his balance. And then I say, oh, you can also do a ankle pick from this. So what happens if I step through and he moves? Well, he's created another opening. So now I change the direction of the throw, and I step through. So what happens if I try to trip him and he moves from the step through? I have to circle. I do a circle throw, or use some kind of off-balancing technique. And I'm just going through the motions here, teaching my student Aiken these techniques. But in modern control tactics, at least the way I like to teach it, I show the pummel. Here I am taking the back and doing a simple hip bump takedown. One thing you will see different from modern control tactics, generally speaking, the takedowns tend to be softer for liability reasons. Graham v. Connor, is it objectively reasonable use of force? Here's more of a modern approach to knife training. In Aikido or Aiki Jiu-Jitsu or Hapkido, you'll see, instead of like the slashing motions, you'll see a classic, thrust or a ice pick attack like you see here. And I'm not showing any Aiki type motions, but I'm demonstrating a more modern approach. Here I am talking about breaking the balance. It doesn't matter if you're talking modern control tactics or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or MMA or wrestling or classic Jiu-Jitsu, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, your Taiho Jitsu. It doesn't matter what system of grappling and throwing you train. There are only 8 ways to off-balance them. And you are going to lean to whatever system of throwing or takedowns or projections that your system uses. But if you look at it and you break it down, there's 8 directions. That was like a foot stomp takedown. Here I am donning the gi, and I'm doing some real basic gi work with Aiken. He wanted to do some gi stuff. So this is going to be, that's a old school snap down. I learned that in Hapkido. And you're going to see that in a lot of systems of jiu-jitsu, classic Japanese jiu-jitsu. But it doesn't matter. Here I am just throwing making him think I'm going to try to take that leg. So he steps back and creates an angle that I can off balance him. Here I am doing it again, and I'm going to the side and taking him down. This is just real basic gi work. A big difference is that there's usually more space with the gi because you have handles that you can hang on to versus no gi where you're clinching and pummeling with the person. But the concepts are the same. Here I am showing the basic motion of the left-handed lapel throw. I'm left-handed. I fight with my left hand forward, so I tend to use this throw a lot. Your jiu-jitsu guys, your Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys say, yeah, you got to be careful, though, because they can take your back and choke you. You're absolutely right. You have to do everything just right. But here I am demonstrating Kazushi. I've pushed one way to get him to step back, and then I'm saying, hey, you can even use your wrist. However you take their balance, however you take their Kazushi, you're stepping in, you're filling that void, and you're throwing him. I'm doing it real slow so he has a chance to fall out of it. He hasn't done a lot of ukemi training or falling, rolling. We still practice a lot of that. I'm saying it shouldn't be a lot of effort. Here I am just loading him on my back and saying it shouldn't be that hard. If you're straining really hard, then you're doing it wrong. You're using muscle and you're not using technique. You're not getting their balance or their Kazushi before you do the throw. Another variation, a seonage, I believe you'd call it in traditional jiu-jitsu or judo. I'm saying you're stepping in, you're filling the box, and you're doing the throw. Guys, it's super important to train both gi and no gi, and that's my Brazilian jiu-jitsu influence coming out. A lot of systems only train gi. You have to be good at both. Self-defense, during the winter, people wear clothing. But long story short, you just don't have time to do this in modern control tactics. That's why I say, listen, if you want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I love it. I push it left and right. I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But I love just as much the traditional martial arts, your Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, your Taiho Jitsu, your Hapkido. I love all that stuff because they take the time and energy. They do kata. People are like, katas are a waste of time. I get what you're saying. In grappling arts, kata is very different. It's not like, punching and kicking in the air. You're doing kata with a partner, throwing kata. You're drilling these techniques. You're doing it. They're slow, methodical. You're really breaking down the techniques to their finest, smallest parts, really digesting it and becoming not just proficient, but mastering the system. You don't get that in modern control tactics, and it's sad. You need to bring that back to your system. And here I am saying, hey, striking's still very important. And I practice more of what I would call kickboxing or Dutch-style kickboxing, Muay Thai influence, but this is my coach my coach at the time. It was Coach Colton. He was my Krav Maga and my MMA coach, and he was doing this Dutch style where he's using his boxing gloves instead of focus mitts, and he's throwing out numbers like 2, 3, 5, and I know what the patterns are. And then every once in a while we clinch. We're actually listening to the Bot Rusin's videos tape. So anyway. If you have any questions, send them my way. Please like, subscribe, and share. And take care, everybody.
Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out.